Hello, everyone. My name is Kay Gooch, and I'm Director of Community Programs here at ARC. And I'd like to welcome you today to our webinar for care partners entitled Tips for Surviving and Thriving as a Care Partner with Dr. Rosalind Kalb. Before I introduce our speakers, I'd like to give you a brief overview on ARC. ARC is a patient-focused, patient-founded nonprofit organization whose mission is to advance science to both improve and extend the lives of those with amyloidosis. We have 4 focus areas, as you can see on this slide: improving the speed and accuracy of diagnosing, then increasing our understanding of the disease to identify new treatments, accelerate approval and reimbursement of effective treatments, and then certainly enhancing the care and quality of life for people affected by amyloidosis. And if you'd like to learn more about ARC and what we do, you can certainly visit our website at arci.org. I'd also like to bring up this next slide to thank our many sponsors listed here today for your generosity. And we certainly couldn't do these webinars without your support. So thank you so much. And now just a few housekeeping details before we get started. Today's webinar is recorded, so we will post the webinar on our website. You will get a follow-up email after today's webinar with the link, as well as the link to the slides. And you'll be able to view that from our YouTube site as much as you would like. Also, you can submit your questions anytime throughout the presentation in the Q&A box, and then we will try to answer those at the end. We'll have some time at the end after the presentation to answer questions. And also, if you're having trouble with the audio with your computer, you can certainly log in via your phone, so you can find that information in the email that you received when you signed up. And also, I'd like to encourage you, if you're a care partner and you could use some support, or if you're in need of resources or more information, please do reach out to our patient support team. The phone number is there at the bottom of this slide. And also you can email at support@arci.org. ARC does have a peer mentor program. So if you feel you could benefit from talking with another care partner who's been there and knows what you're going through, you can certainly, again, reach out to us at our phone or through email, and we'd be glad to help you. So now I'd like to introduce today's speakers. Our first speaker today is Dr. Rosalind Kalb. Roz is a clinical psychologist who has specialized in chronic illness support and education for more than 40 years, with a particular focus on the needs of care partners. During her career, Roz has provided individual, group, and family psychotherapy, as well as cognitive remediation, and has offered education programs. Roz is also a certified health coach for individuals living with chronic illness and their care partners. She has published numerous books and articles for lay and professional audiences. And also joining us later on today in the webinar will be Linnie Newman. And Linnie is joining us today from upstate New York. She is a care partner for her husband, Mark, who was diagnosed with ATTR wild type in February of 2021. Linnie and Mark have 2 children and 2 grandchildren. And Linnie believes it's been important to be alongside Mark as he navigates this journey, being supportive through the ups and downs, and especially being there for all the physician's visits and willing to be able to go in and ask the questions and clarify the discussions. So now I'd like to turn it over to Roz. And Roz, I'm going to stop sharing if you'd like to come on screen now and share your slides.
Okay. Am I on screen now, Kay?
You're not. I'm just still seeing the black box there.
Okay.
There you are.
Okay.
Okay. I'm going to go off and turn it over to you.
Thanks so much. I really appreciate the kind introduction and being invited to talk to your group. This is a new experience for me because I've done a lot of my work with people affected by multiple sclerosis. So I am learning along with you, even while I talk to you about tips for surviving and thriving as a support partner. I do want to add to my introduction that I also have 2 children and 2 grandchildren, because I don't want anybody to think that Linnie has an edge on that. That's also a key part of who I am. So let me start by saying that a chronic illness is
Roz,
yes.
this is Kay. We're not seeing your slides yet, so
Why? Okay, hold on.
there you go.
All right.
Perfect.
So
Thank you.
we've heard this in the past from some individuals at other programs we've done, that a chronic illness is a we disease and not a me disease. And I think this is an incredibly important distinction that we sometimes forget. When one person in a family is diagnosed with a chronic illness, the whole family lives with it, right? It's like a stranger who shows up at the door. It arrives uninvited and unexpected. It spreads its stuff all over the house and it doesn't leave. It doesn't go home again. And so every member of the family has to make peace with the illness, has to get to know it, has to have a relationship with it. And most importantly, each member of the family has to find space for it in daily life without giving it more space and attention than it actually needs. So some researchers in New York, headed by a psychiatrist by the name of Gonzalez, said this quote many, many, many years ago, and I've used it in my work ever since, that living with a chronic illness is all about finding a place for the illness while keeping the illness in its place. Something that we all need to learn to live by. So why do I use the term care partner when I talk about the role that all of you have? Caregiver to me sounds like too much of a one-way street. A care partnership, which we all have with important people in our lives all the time, whether we're living with a chronic illness or not, whether we're aging or not, we are in care partnerships with people we love. Those care partnerships involve mutual caring, concern, and support. It involves a give and take between the people in this partnership. And it involves compromise, learning how to compromise, learning how to implement compromise. Care partner can be anybody in that kind of a relationship. It could be a spouse or partner, a family member, a friend. For some people that we've met, it's been a close neighbor. With very few exceptions, and I mean very few, even individuals with very, very severe impairments can give something to their care partner in return. A smile, a thank you, an acknowledgement, anything that is showing their ability to give care, respect, and honor to the person they're in partnership with. So now I want to ask a polling question just to get a little more information about all of you. How long have you been a care partner for somebody you love? 1 to 5 years, 6 to 10 years, 11 to 15 years, or more than 16 years? Anna is busy in the background collecting information for us, and when she's ready to share, she'll let us know. So Anna, what kind of answers are we seeing? Most of the people on this call have been in a care partner role for 1 to 5 years, and then we just have a smattering in all the other groups. 72% of you. Okay, wonderful. Thank you. All right. Polling question number 2. What is your relationship? Are you a spouse partner, a parent, a sibling, another family member, a friend, or somebody else? And if so, you can write your answer in the Q&A. Thank you, everybody, for sharing your information. It really helps me get to know you and you to know each other. What is your relationship? So 84% are a spouse partner, and we have a little bit of everything. And one person wrote in the Q&A. Kay, can you tell us what that other person's role is?
I'm actually not seeing anything, so they may have just hit other and didn't
Okay,
indicate what it was.
thanks very much. But almost everybody we're talking with today is a spouse or partner. Which of the following describe you? Pick your top 3. Are you lonesome, resentful, proud, grieving, guilt-ridden, exhausted, contented, anxious, frustrated, and other? You can write it in the chat. Your top 3. I know these are hard choices. I'm very interested to see the answers to this poll. All over the gamut, but anxious is leading the pack, which is very understandable. Chronic illnesses are unpredictable, and it's very hard without a crystal ball to know what's going to happen. Frustrated and exhausted and grieving are very, very close behind, but all of these things have been chosen, and I'm hoping that over the next few minutes, we'll talk a little bit about these feelings and how to manage them as you take care of your own wellness.
And Roz, we did have 2 in the chat, happy and another attentive.
Attentive. Those are great words. Thank you. I'm going to have to add those to my list. So anybody who's taken an airplane has heard that it's important to put on your own oxygen mask before helping the person next to you. We've heard it for so long, it's kind of like background noise, but I really want to call it out and talk about why it's so important. Just think about what oxygen does for us. It allows us to breathe, to catch a breath, to take a breather when we need it, to get a breath of fresh air. I think the list could probably go on, but putting that oxygen mask on really gives us respite, emotionally, physically, when we need it. And the reason you need it, we all need it, is that in addition to being a care partner, you are also a person who has other roles and responsibilities. It's not like you quit all your other jobs, right? You still have other things in your life that you need to attend to. You also have needs and feelings and priorities of your own personal needs, feelings, and priorities. a person whose health and wellness are just as important as your loved ones. And this is a very hard message for me to get across. Your needs matter and your health and wellness matter. You need adequate sleep in order to do what you do. You need regular exercise and physical activity, time to do your own preventive healthcare visits and attend to your own healthcare needs. You need alone time. I've had care partners say to me, I just need time to think. What a precious commodity. Time to think, to pray, to contemplate, to dream. Social interactions. Being isolated isn't good for any of us. Social interactions feed our souls. And emotional well-being. So another polling question. Thanks, Anna. What's missing in your life today? Pick your top 3. Time to think, meditate, pray, be alone. Quality sleep, regular exercise and physical activity, recreational activities and hobbies, time with friends, time for your work, time to attend to your own healthcare needs. None of the above. You're not missing any of those. Or other. Please write it in the Q&A. Interesting. Quality sleep and recreational activities. I think care partners across the board share these, as well as time to think, meditate, pray, or be alone. That's right up there. Time with friends, that's socializing, interaction time. But somebody picked all of these, right? Now, I'm very glad to see that a few of you marked none of the above. That means that for some few of you, you are able to get what you need to take care of yourself and to attend to your own health. And if we have time later, I'm hoping that we can hear how some of you manage to do that. How do you prioritize? How do you create time and space for your own care? And we'll be talking to Linnie about that too in a little bit. So for those of you who aren't able to get these things that you need, let's talk about what's stopping you. You just have too much to do. There's not enough time in the day. You're not planning or prioritizing in ways that put your own needs on the front burner. Your loved one can't be left alone, so you can't do things for yourself or by yourself. You just don't have enough help. You feel guilty attending to your own needs. Other people seem to have opinions or judgments about you, your behavior, your priorities, and that concerns you. None of these, or something else. Again, across the board. None of the above, though. I'm really glad to see that so many of you say that none of these are getting in the way. But for those of you who have some obstacles, too much to do, and feeling guilty sort of lead along with not enough help. And it does take help and assistance to do all the things you need to do so that you can carve out time for yourself. But most of you, I think, are managing to carve out time that you need. So that's really good to hear.
Roz, we did have one in the chat that said, my friend is very demanding of my time and attention.
And that is something I actually hear a lot, whether it's a friend or a partner or a spouse. Sometimes the person living with a chronic illness, because of their own anxieties, emotional needs, physical needs, feel like they need constant attention or they want constant attention. And that's why talking about boundaries will be so important, because no one's needs and priorities should make it impossible for you to find time to deal with your own. So when you put on that oxygen mask yourself, that helps to ensure that you are attending to your wellness. Even if you have to think very concretely to yourself when you get up in the morning, I am putting my own oxygen mask on today to ensure that I take care of some of my needs and priorities. When you do it, it makes it easier for you to plan, prioritize, and problem solve in an effective, constructive way. It gives you that breathing time to think about how you're going to set your priorities for the day, for the week, for the month. It helps to ensure that you have the physical and emotional strength you need without enough oxygen. And of course, that's a metaphor, but without enough self-sustaining oxygen and self-care, you won't have the strength that you need to care for the other person. Okay. And also, and this is really important, to ensure that you have the emotional and physical reserves you need in times of crisis, because we all know with chronic illness or even with simple aging, which is not so simple, I can say, there are going to be times of crisis, health crises, economic crises, weather crises, political crises. There are all kinds of crises. And without that reservoir of emotional and physical energy, we can't step up when we need to address those crises. So here are some tips to think about. Know that communication, which of course involves not just talking, but also listening, lays the foundation, right? And sometimes communication can really stall or become very conflicted or anxiety provoking because some of the topics we have to talk about are difficult, touchy, raw. So when that's true, working with a mental health professional can really be helpful to jumpstart those conversations. That neutral third ear in the room to help you start dealing with difficult topics. Recognize that self-care is not selfish. We're taught that it's selfish, but it's not. It's actually self-sustaining. If you need to put that up on your wall, put it up on your wall. Without self-care, you cannot sustain the role that you are in. Acknowledge that one person's needs, feelings, priorities are no more important than another's. It doesn't matter if one person has an illness or disability. That doesn't mean that they matter more or that their needs are prominent more than yours. Learn to set limits without guilt. Without limits and boundaries, we can never find time for ourselves. The world around us is greedy, right? It will always take our time and our attention and our energy. So without the boundaries, we'll never carve out time for ourselves. And work to achieve some degree, whatever possible degree of balance you can in your partnership. A good partnership means that each partner needs to contribute in whatever way they can. It's not a one-way street. Think of those two kids on a teeter-totter staying in balance, or a seesaw, right? Everybody's got to contribute for things to stay in balance. Each person in the partnership needs to be on the giving end and on the receiving end of the goodies. Otherwise, one person feels like they're giving everything and getting very little, while the other person never has the joy of giving and caring for you. Each partner needs to feel valued and important. And that means that as a person's abilities change because of chronic illness or aging, the roles and responsibilities need to shift so that that person can continue to contribute in whatever ways they can. They need to feel valued. And partners, as much as possible, need to make decisions together. That is what sharing and partnering means. And a couple more tips. This is a hard sell, but it's really important to plan for the worst, even while you're hoping for the best. Planning for the best to happen doesn't get you very far. It doesn't prepare you for crises. It doesn't prepare you for the unpredictable. So you really want to get your head out of the sand, plan for the things that might happen, that might challenge you, because you don't ever want to be in a position where you're making big decisions in a crisis. We are lousy at making decisions in a pressured, scary, difficult situation. So you want to do that kind of planning and problem solving when your feet are solidly on the ground and you're clear-headed and you can do it together. So talk together about your finances. Talk to professionals about your finances. Get the best guidance you possibly can. It is never too early to do financial planning with a disability or elder care attorney who can help you anticipate what the impact on your financial situation is likely to be down the road. You want to think about long-term care options, remembering that long-term care begins in the home. Just bringing somebody in to help is a first step in a process of thinking about the care and support you may need over time. So don't hesitate to talk about those needs and how you're going to implement them in ways that help you both. Think about where you live, not just the house or apartment you live in, but the neighborhood. Are you in a situation that allows you freedom, safety, independence, access to resources, access to others in the community? Think about where you live and whether it's going to work for you over time. The more ducks you have in a row, the fewer things you'll have to worry about in the middle of the night. I am an expert, unfortunately, at finding middle of the night things to think about. And so the best way that I counter that for myself is to try and be clear-headed during the day, to think about what it is I need to problem solve about, talk to my husband about, access resources about, so that I've done my planning and my decision making and my prioritizing, so I don't have to do it at 3 a.m. And build your support network. Build it as widely as you can. Make use of it. People want to be helpful. They want to be supportive as long as you let them know how they can best help and support you. Don't wait for people to just flock to your door with things they're going to do to help. They need input from you so that they can be effective in their support network role. And lastly, I want to suggest that you take the time to write your own version of the Serenity Prayer. And I thought, for the purposes of this program, I'd share mine with you. It evolves over time. I tweak it occasionally as new things occur to me. But this is what I say to myself. On good days, I may say it once, and some days I may say it to myself many times. Every day, I need courage, patience, and resilience, CPR. We all need CPR, to accept what I cannot change, strength and creativity to change the things I can, and the wisdom and sensitivity to recognize the difference. So I hope that each of you will take a little time today or sometime in the near future and just jot down what your serenity prayer might look like if it were modified to meet your particular needs and challenges. And now I want to invite Linnie. I'm really pleased to have met Linnie and to have her come on with me so that we can talk about some of what we've been sharing so far. Hey, Linnie.
Hi.
Thank you for doing this with me. I really appreciate it. So, Linnie, first of all, this has all been about self-care. Can you tell me what your own self-care looks like and how you've managed to piece it together?
It was very interesting to get this question because throughout my life, I have found that it has been very difficult for me to take my time. First, there was full-time work, and then we had kids, and then there was volunteering, and then there was this and this, and I never really had a specific hobby that took a lot of time and took some of that.
Right.
And I have found that now it's even harder because virtually all our relatives and all our friends always ask about Mark and never ask about me. And I find that I never bring it up. And even a couple of my friends that I really trust and have talked about it still continue to ask about him and not about me. The one area that I really feel good about, and that really does help me, is how much I've gotten involved with his treatment. I'm the one that takes care of the pills. I make sure that they're ordered, that he takes them every night, which sometimes he forgets if I go to sleep before he does.
Right.
That I go to all of the doctor's appointments because I find that I can be the busybody wife who asks some of the tough questions that he won't make the physicians come right out with it or are very vague about it. And I think that that's been it's helped me. I'm sure it's probably helped him, or he's embarrassed that I do it, but I feel very good about doing it. I love to bake. I love to do little things, but eventually I need a hobby. Right now, I continue to work 2 days a week because they appreciate that I do that.
So Linnie, does the healthcare team, who obviously know you, right? You're very present and involved. Do they ask you how you're doing?
Never,
Never.
never.
So I think, and this is a tough one, folks, but I think this is where you have to feel okay about advocating for yourself. Now, one of the ways to do that is to speak up in the healthcare provider's office. So let's say a healthcare provider recommends a strategy or a treatment intervention that involves you. So maybe it's, I don't know, something to do with toileting, or maybe it's something to do with physical lifting, helping, assisting. It could be anything. And for whatever reason, that recommendation that involves you doesn't work for you. I have back issues. I'm not getting enough sleep at night to help with toileting during the night. I'm in a lot of pain myself. I don't want to put words in your mouth. I'm just saying that sometimes healthcare providers can be very glib, suggesting all the things that you as a care partner can do to help their patient. But if you don't speak up and say, well, that plan doesn't work for me. We need to come up with a different plan because I'm unable physically, emotionally, energy-wise to do that. That's one thing. With friends and family, particularly people you love and you know love you, it's perfectly okay. In fact, it's important to say, sometimes it really hurts my feelings that you never ask how I'm doing, because I'm living with amyloidosis too. This is a family adventure we're on, and I need you to know that it affects me too. Do you think you could do that, Linnie?
It would be hard for me. I must admit.
Well, I'm sure that you're speaking for other people on the call, but let's think about, why is it hard to talk about our own feelings and needs? What stands in the way?
Because he's the one that's sick and not me, and I'm very healthy. So it's just important for people to be concerned about him because he's the one that does have the problem.
Okay, I get that. I get that. But that means that his value is higher than yours, that his stake in resources is higher, that his priorities are more important. And I think for the health of care partners, it's really important to question that. All of us, we need to question that. With or without chronic illness, as we age, all of our needs are going to pop up at time to time, and sometimes they're going to surprise us. So I've worked with a lot of care partners where the person who has been the care partner for 20 years is suddenly the patient with cancer, or the person who's had a major cardiac event, or has fallen and broken a hip. And suddenly, the whole care partnership has to shift. So then whose needs are more important? Then who needs attention?
Right.
So I would just encourage all of you to think about why it is that because a person has an illness, society sees their needs as somehow more valid or more important than a person who is at this moment in time healthy and able-bodied. That is a cultural value that's not helping us. I'd encourage you to try it out on one person, Linnie.
Okay.
Just one. All right. So does your partner, Mark, ask how you're doing?
He didn't until recently, because I don't think that he understood how difficult it was to be a care partner. And I will share something. Recently, I had a procedure done, which I've never had. It was 2.5 hours long. He had to bring me. He had to wait in the waiting room. He had to wait to talk to the doctors, etc. And he turned around to me and told me later on that day that it was the first time that he realized how difficult it was, especially after Mark had his last procedure in the cath lab because of a complication of the amyloidosis, that was 6 hours long. And I was going crazy. I can't tell you, because the prior one was 2 hours long, and now this was 6.5 hours long. And I don't think he ever thought very much that it was hard for me, but his having to be the care partner concerning what I was going through really showed him how difficult it has been during these 4 years.
I'm sorry it took a procedure to,
It did, but it was wonderful. I'm sorry too, but it really did.
yeah,
It was quite good for me to hear.
of course. So I have a little exercise for all of you that I would like you to try, and it's a good way to jumpstart the conversation with your partner about the ways in which a chronic illness is a we disease and not just a me disease. If you sit with your partner and you each have a piece of paper, and without looking at each other's sheets, no cheating, you each draw a circle on the piece of paper. And you pretend that that is your life pie, P-I-E, your life pie. And you say to yourself, how much of my life is amyloidosis? Okay. And after your partner figures out their slice of the pie and you figure out your slice of the pie, you share. And it's really quite eye-opening. And it's particularly eye-opening if you do this little exercise. It takes 30 seconds. If you do this every couple of months, because it changes with events, just like what Linnie was describing with her own procedure. Suddenly, Mark had a flash of insight that there are moments in time when amyloidosis takes up a huge amount of Linnie's life and time and energy and attention, whereas other days, maybe less, right? And a person who's living with a chronic illness may find that some days their illness is the whole pie. They can't think about anything else. They can't feel anything else. They can't do anything except attend to their illness, where on a good day, where they've gone to see a grandchild sporting event, or they've watched a favorite team on TV, or they've gone to a concert, the chronic illness is a smaller slice of the pie. It changes, it evolves every single day, but having this conversation and showing each other how it changes day to day is a wonderful way to talk about your partnership and how you are each experiencing the chronic illness. So try it, see what happens, and in an interesting way, this may also help your partners. So we did this in a big group setting, and this was people living with MS. And one of the men who had MS was astounded when he saw his wife's slice of the pie. He said, I am so overwhelmed with guilt. I feel like I've ruined her life. I feel like I've shattered our dreams. I feel like MS has taken away everything. I can't stand it, how guilty I feel. And she shows him her slice of the pie, and it's about 25%. And she said, you haven't ruined my life. You haven't robbed me of everything. You haven't spoiled all of our dreams. We have made some changes. So it helped both of them to see the chronic illness in perspective and how it affects each of them. So give it a try and see what kind of conversations you have, and do it every couple of months.
Great idea.
So now I think we have time, Kay, for some questions and comments.
Yes. Yes. Thank you, Roz. And thank you so much, Linnie. Linnie, I'm going to ask you to stay up too, because some of these questions might be helpful for you. And I would like to say if anybody has more questions and would like to enter them in the Q&A box, we'll be certainly glad to ask those. A couple of things, and Linnie, this one's for you. So
okay.
kind of given what you've learned through the years, what advice would you give Linnie of 2021 when Mark was first diagnosed, when you were just starting this journey? What advice would you give yourself then?
Oh my gosh. I needed to listen to him more because he is a very, concrete person and did lots and lots of research all about amyloidosis. And I must admit that at that time, Vyndamax had just been approved, and he saw all the statistics that had been written, a few years before that had the life expectancy of people with amyloidosis as less than 5 years. And that really shook him up. And I wish I had been more vigilant about finding out that that was such a huge issue with him. And we did come around to talking about it, but it wasn't right away. And even today, time is very, very precious to Mark, even though he's doing quite well on the Vyndamax.
Thanks, Linnie. We have a question. This is probably one for you, Roz, that says, my husband sometimes tries to downplay how he's feeling to our family and even to his doctors. When I feel like I tell them how he's doing, I seem like an alarmist. How can I handle that?
It's a great question, and I see Linnie smiling. I think it's important to stake out your role, your care partner role, as somebody who's there every day, watching what's happening and trying to be as good and accurate a reporter as possible. Many people who go in to see their doctor with a chronic illness, either don't remember the ups and downs or episodes or attacks or challenges that they've had since the last visit. They sort of have all disappeared into a memory. And today I'm feeling pretty good, so I forget that 2 weeks ago and 4 weeks ago and 6 weeks ago, I felt like you know what. But the care partner can provide invaluable information about what they've observed since the last visit. So I think it's very okay to say, you may have forgotten that you actually felt pretty crummy 3 weeks ago, or you had a really rough patch, and I just want the doctor to know about that. So filling in the gaps. The other thing we know, and I dealt with a lot of people like this, they would come to, my office was in an MS care center, and people would see the doctor, and then they would come to see me. And they would tell me all about symptoms and what was going wrong and what didn't feel good. And I'd say, well, did you share that with the doctor? No, I didn't want to worry him. No, I really want him to know how well I'm doing. No, it just didn't seem important. I said, well, it was important enough for you to talk to me, and you're upset about it. So I think the care partner also has a role just in giving the full picture, the positives as well as the challenges, and any care provider, any doctor worth their salt will value that input. So I don't know who's saying to this person that they're an alarmist. You need to present it objectively. You need to perhaps keep some notes about dates and events, like a little calendar where you track what happened. It's not about alarming anybody. It's simply about making sure the record is accurate. Because without giving the doctor an accurate perception of things, you're asking them to treat the condition with their hands tied behind their back.
Linnie, is there anything you want to add to that?
No, but I think it does happen. I totally agree.
You felt that before, yeah. Another question we have is just kind of asking about how can you, as a care partner, how can you build a strong social support system and feel comfortable asking for that help and support you may need? Maybe you don't need it all the time, but if at times when you do need it, how can you go about doing that?
Do you want to start, Linnie, or do you want me to start?
I just want to say just that I think it has to be the closest friends that you trust, and it doesn't have to be a huge amount. In fact, I would say the opposite. It should just be a couple of friends that you really feel close enough, and they are people who listen to you when you speak to them.
I totally agree with that. I also think that the more specific you can be and the more honest you can be, the more successful this is, right? So if you just wait for people to offer help, they may not because they're embarrassed or they don't know how to ask or bring it up, or they're afraid they're going to upset you or hurt your feelings or insult you. So you pick, as Linnie says, the people you trust with the information. You say, I really want to catch you up on what's going on in our household these days. And I need to tell you that I'm going to need your help and support because this is hard for me. I'm kind of reeling from things right now, from this diagnosis or from what's going to happen. I could really use some help. Let me ask you if you would be willing to help with, and then you have a very specific list. You don't ask non-huggers to hug you. You don't ask people who hate to cook to prepare dinner. You don't ask people who work full-time to help with a doctor's appointment. You pick the right people for the tasks that will fit in their comfort zone. And you say, I'm wondering whether on Tuesday the 31st, you could drive Joe to an appointment because I have to be at an appointment for myself that I can't change. And they can either say, yes, I can do it that day, or they say no, right? But I'll do it a different day. The more specific and concrete you are, the more people are able to jump in and respond. Most people want to help, but you've got to match the right person with the right ask.
So another question just popped up here. I think we have time for one more. So what does the caregiver of the care partner do when the patient isn't doing all the things that he or she should be doing according to the doctors? And you feel like you should be thinking about that. So
it's a great question, and it's a tough one. I think that it starts with a conversation with a loved one that says, this is a we disease, not a me disease. When you don't take care of yourself or you don't do what the healthcare team is recommending, it affects both of us. And I have a stake in this too. So I really need to ask why you feel that some of these recommendations aren't important. Or I really need to ask if there's some way that I could encourage you or support you to do some of these things. Or, the doctor is assuming that you and I are doing what you've recommended. The doctor is assuming it. So I feel like I need to let the doctor know that that's not happening. If the doctor doesn't have a real sense of how we're managing this at home, again, we're asking that physician to treat us with their hands behind their back or with a blindfold on. So let me help you, let me understand, and please know that I will feel the need to share the information so your provider can do the best job for us possible.
Right. And I think the last question here I have, so I'm going to ask for you, Linnie, is how did you sort of educate those in your network about Mark's diagnosis? Sort of how did you do that?
I waited for Mark to tell people. I didn't think that it was, I guess Rose says it's both of our diseases, but I didn't. I didn't feel like I could betray his privacy. And I honestly didn't share. And maybe that's why people only ask me about him and not me, but that's how it was.
Kate, do I have time to make one comment about that?
Sure.
So I
Absolutely.
totally get, Linnie, that with the actual diagnosis, it's the person's place to decide when they want to share. But in a similar situation in my family, I'm a talker and my partner is less of a talker, right? I share. So at some point I said to him, I need to know one person that you would be comfortable with me talking to, because I need to talk. I need to have that support. Not everybody, but and he did. He said, I would be perfectly comfortable if you shared it with so and so. And that was a huge relief for me. Like a safety valve, right? That I could talk. So
I totally agree. And we did get to that point where, and as things have come along, that again, there are two people that I have been very close to. One I've known since I was 8 years old. We've gone through a lot together, and that has been very important to me. And a lot of what he considers close friends still don't know a lot about the amyloidosis. I wish they did, but that's up to him.
awesome.
Right. Well, thank you both. We are at the top of the hour now. Roz, thank you so much for joining us today and sharing your knowledge and your experience with us. And Linnie, a big thanks to you as well. I know sometimes this is not always easy to share as well in this type of forum, but thank you both so much for joining us today. And just a reminder again, it is recorded, and today's webinar will be on our website. You'll get a link that will have the information about the recording, as well as getting the copy of the slides too. So again, thank you so much for joining us. We look forward to seeing you. Our next webinar will be on AL clinical trials. So there'll be more information coming out about that. And that will be in November. So thank you all and have a great afternoon.
Thank you so much.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Bye.